Hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Writers Workshop. My name is Salim, and I will be serving as your host tonight and will help navigate questions. Our topic tonight is identifying your genre with local author Molly MacRae. Before I introduce Molly, I do want to give a few library updates and Zoom reminders. So if you have questions for staff, there are a few ways you can reach out to us. You can schedule a consultation. To do that, just go to champaign.org/book-a-librarian. You can chat with us anytime the library is open, and you can email us at librarian@champaign.org. I also want to share a few instructions for communicating through Zoom tonight. So if you have a question, you can put them in the chat. So the chat feature is located at the bottom of your screen towards the center. You can type your question in. If you prefer to use your microphone, just raise your hand and I can unmute you. Molly will answer questions at the end of her presentation, so stick around to get your questions answered. All right, and with that said, I'd like to now introduce our presenter. So Molly is a local mystery writer. She's also the award-winning author of the Haunted Yarn Shop Mysteries and the Highland Bookshop Mysteries. And she's here tonight to guide us through the various literary genres to help us determine the right fit for our writing. Molly, thank you for being here, and I will turn it over to you now.
Thank you for having me, Salim. It's nice, very nice to be here. How many of you are writing fiction? Can you maybe hit the raise a hand? Well, some of you will be writing fiction and some will be writing nonfiction. This genre is a little bit more pertinent to writing fiction, but there are nonfiction genres as well. In order to talk about what kind of genre you want to write or that you've already written, we really need to understand what genre is. So simply put, genre is a category. Works of art, music, and literature within a genre are characterized by a particular style, form, or content. They belong to the same family. It's a French word, genre, with Latin roots. Genre is closely related to genus, which you might remember from a biology class. Organisms within a genus and books within a genre belong to the same family. So that's a dictionary definition of genre, but that doesn't tell you who needs it out there in the world. To whom are genres important? Libraries. Picture yourself walking into the Champaign Public Library because you want something to read. After noticing how lovely the place is and how friendly the staff is, do you stand there feeling completely lost because you have no idea how to proceed? Well, probably not, because you've been there or to another library before. And you know there are a couple of neighborhoods for the books. There's fiction and nonfiction. And you'll find these neighborhoods in the adult department, the children's department, the teens department, and these departments are neighborhoods too. The genres, the families of the books, live in these neighborhoods. The library's goal is to make it easy for you to go home with the books you want. And that's very key right there. Easy, make it easy. Let me show you a picture. Oops, I got to share my screen. Hang on. How's that?
Let's see. There we go. Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Kind of a letdown, huh? It's books. But you can see the different genres there. You can see, okay, nonfiction with their numbers. You can see the label, the new label. That's a genre. New books, science fiction, or this one here, Dactyl Hill Squad, J. And the older that's not an age range, that's the author's last name, but that's juvenile fiction. Here's just regular fiction, but it's new regular fiction. Those are all ways of finding what you want. Okay, we're going to stop sharing that one. And next time we won't be quite so futzy. Okay, so bookstores work the same way as libraries. Genres are important to them because they want you to find the books you want so you can buy them, because of course they want you to buy them. Genres are definitely important to readers because that's how they find what they want. And that makes genres important to the writer. Why? Because they'll help you market your book. Because you also want to sell your book to readers or to a library, and you want them to know where to put it. Choosing the right genre label for your book might be the difference between success and your novel living in a file, filing in a file on your computer or in a drawer for the rest of its life, or floating in obscurity amongst 4 million plus other books on Amazon. They really have an awful lot of books. If you don't have the right genre label, no one's going to find you. Your name would become a genre label in that case too. So people could look you up by your name or your book's title if they know what it is. But if they're browsing, good luck. So that brings us to, what is your publishing goal? My advice is to never sell yourself short. If your dream is to be published by a traditional publisher, then go for it. Go for the big letdown first. There are plenty of micro and small publishers that will be happy to have your book if you send it to them. But they aren't likely to say to you, oh, this is too good for us. Send it to New York. They're going to keep it. And again, your book might die. Believe in yourself and your work and aim for the market you want to reach. Excuse me. Okay, so if you're going for the traditional agent editor route, knowing your genre will help you land an agent and help your agent sell that book. If you send your children's manuscript, your children's picture book, to an agent who only handles self-help and popular psychology, it's a waste of your time. And that's maybe an exaggerated example, but it's not that exaggerated. There are so many agents out there, and there are ways to find out what they specialize in, what they do all specialize. My agent, for instance, specializes in women's fiction, mysteries, thrillers, some memoir. She does not do YA or children's. If I sent her a children's manuscript, even if she liked it, she wouldn't know how to market it because she doesn't have those contacts. She has contacts in her specialties. She knows the acquiring editors. She knows the publishing houses. So you have to do your homework that way. You have to know your genre so that you send your material to the right agent to begin with. What if you try to sell an international spy novel to an agent who handles mystery and women's fiction? Agents and editors do tend to specialize. So unless your manuscript fits the genre an agent represents, it'll end up in a slush pile, meaning a pile full of stuff that's probably just going to get deleted, tossed. It actually used to be a pile of stuff. These days it's something on a computer. Okay, now say you've found an agent, and the agent is talking to an editor, say at Macmillan or at Simon & Schuster, and they're both excited by your really stellar manuscript. Say it's a mystery with an element of alternative history, and a touch of romance. Do you know who else cares about the genre? Marketers. The editor will take the concept to the marketers, and if they don't know how to label the book, they'll pass on it. That's a bummer. Sometimes really original stuff doesn't get past the marketers because it's too much of a long shot. They'll tell you a bookstore won't know where to put it on the shelf. And maybe use your imagination, Mr. Marketer, but that's not their business. It's kind of too bad that you take a creative product and it ends up depending on marketers who might not have that creative vision. If you're going the independent route, you don't have to worry about agents and editors and marketing gatekeepers. But genre is still important. You do want to label your book. Why? So readers can find it easily. Take a tip from librarians, because they kind of know everything, and make it easy for your readers and potential readers to find your book. As an independent author, an indie, you can go into your book's record on Amazon and fine-tune your genre labels. So if you choose genre label and you later decide or see that there is a different label these days, you can go in and you can fix that. That's an advantage. I can't go in and fix strange labels that get put on my book sometimes. My most recent book is not a culinary mystery. Amazon is calling it a culinary mystery because my publisher decided that was the best fit. I don't know why. Not a bad genre label. So how do you choose what genre to write? Well, there's that old thing, write what you know. Well, you can change that a little bit and write what you can imagine, or write what you like to know. You don't have to know everything about Mars to write a book about living on Mars. You have to know aspects of survival technique. I didn't have to know everything about running a bookstore in Scotland to write a series of books about running a bookstore in Scotland, but I do know about running a bookstore. I do know about living in Scotland, and I was able to do some research. But one thing to be careful of, if you're writing what you want to know, is that rabbit hole of research. Be sure you can climb back out of it and actually write, because that's the important part, is actually writing the book. You can write what you like to read. That's one way of picking a genre. That's what I did. I read a lot of cozy mysteries and traditional mysteries, a lot of issues of Alfred Hitchcock Mystery Magazine and Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine. And I got the idea in my head that if I wanted to write, which I did, that I could write books and stories like those things that I've been reading. And it turns out I can, so that's cool. You can write the book that you want to read. Maybe that book isn't out there, but it's in your head, so you can do that. There might not be enough of the kinds of books you like to read. Go ahead and write. No matter what you want to write, you need to be reading. Reading widely, maybe wildly too, all kinds of stuff. Fiction, nonfiction, children's books, whatever, but read. But also read the kind of books and stories that you do want to write. Readers have expectations. If you tell them they're buying a Western, they might not expect their cattle and cacti to suddenly be transported to Mars. People like genre labels because they like to know what they're getting. Be up to date on your reading within your chosen genre. Know the current conventions. If your heart is set on writing young adult fiction, you should know that young adults, what they're reading today, it isn't Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys for the most part. There's sex, drugs, abuse of various kinds, some of it more graphic than the murder mysteries I write. If you want to write a cozy mystery, you should know the conventions of cozy mysteries. Conventions aren't rules. You can work outside them to a point. But if someone picks up a book that looks like a cozy and says it's a cozy, it shouldn't have a slasher terrorizing people and spilling buckets of blood while shouting pornographic lyrics. You surprise cozy readers like that, and you'll hear about it in online reviews. So will other formerly potential readers. I was on a short story panel at a writing conference some years ago. And during the Q&A at the end of the panel, a person had a question about why it's hard to sell short stories to paying markets. They were having no luck. That's a good question. But they prefaced the question with, I don't read short stories because I don't really like them. Well, that was the answer right there. That was why they were having no luck selling their short stories. That's a cautionary tale. If you're going to write, you need to read, and you need to like the kind of thing that you need to like the kind of thing you're writing. And if you don't know what's the newest and most popular, for instance, in young adult, in YA, ask a librarian or a bookseller for help, because that's what they're there for. Don't ever feel like you're interrupting them and can't talk to them or ask them a question. That's what they're there for. And that's what they want to do, is help you find the books that you want. You don't have to read a dozen YA novels or a dozen cozy mysteries. Read 4 or 5, 3 or 4. That'll be good. It'll give you an idea of the flavor, and that's what you want. That's what a genre is. It's describing the flavor of what you've written. You're still not sure what genre you want to write? Experiment. Write several short stories in different genres, or write the same short story in different genres. That could be an interesting experiment. See what works for you, what you enjoy, and if you don't mind showing your work to others, see what they enjoy that you've written. So what if you've already written your book, but don't know what genre you wrote? That happens. I have a friend who wrote a book, showed it to some other writers at a mystery conference. Boy, it was just at a writing conference. It wasn't a mystery conference. She thought she'd written literature, and it was. But when they read the book, they said, "Oh, you've written a mystery." She said, "You're kidding." She had no idea, and now she's a best-selling mystery author. She didn't realize that's what she was working on. So it's perfectly all right not to know what you've written, but there are ways to find out what you have written. Genre describes the general vibe of your book. It isn't a summary of your book's plot and subplots. It's a label. Trying to put a label on your book can be annoying. That's completely understandable. But again, it's going to make your book easy to find. Nonfiction does have genres, but they tend to be more obvious. If fiction genres give your book a family, think about the Dewey Decimal System in a library. It gives your nonfiction an individual phone number. In a bookstore, a library that doesn't use Dewey anymore, genre labels are just as important for nonfiction as they are for fiction. There's self-help, and well, there's all kinds. I'll show you a list of them, and you can find lists of them, of course, online or at Amazon. What I'm going to show you is a list of genres from Amazon. Go to the library, go to the bookstore, and stroll the shelves. Scroll through Amazon's lists of genres. If you look online, if you ask the question to Google, how many genres of literature are there? You might find 5, 7, 14. I saw one that said 135. Oh my gosh. And Amazon, they go a little bit nuts. They really go way down the chain, and you could find thousands of subgenres, what I call micro niche genres. You might have written a book that's not like anything else out there, even if you stroll down those library shelves and bookstore shelves, and that's cool. But if you're looking for an agent, you still ought to find a genre label for it. If you're going indie, Amazon will probably has you covered. Let's see if I can share the screen again. Hang on. Oh, up there. Oh, can you see that list?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so it's a lengthy list. It's not just 5, it's not just 6, but that's a pretty good. That's got nonfiction and fiction together, and that's pretty decent. there are things that aren't on it, but you've got they just lump children's books. Children's books are broken down just the same way these things are. So are teen books. You've got your crafts, hobbies, and home. You've got your LGBTQ books in the children's department too. Children's department's a little bit easier in some ways to find genres because a lot of them have actual genre stickers. They do in the adult department too. They've got all the mysteries separated out. They've got all the science fiction separated out, but you don't have historical fiction genre labels the way we do in children's. So those are some basics. Now let's see if we can find the subgenres, because they really start, people talk about drilling down. This is drilling down. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Genre literature.
Yes.
And okay, so there this is interesting. This is genre literature and fiction, which you would think then would include mystery. It doesn't. It's got Westerns, it's got sea stories. They've got mysteries off in their own section, and they're not calling it genre. I don't know why not, but there you go. There's something. You got family sagas, friendship fiction, gothic fiction, holiday fiction. You've got so many things to choose. This is a great one. Mashup fiction. I like that. Metaphysical and visionary fiction. Okay, now I'm going to show you something else, maybe. We'll see. Okay. I told you about micro niches. Here's an example of a book in a micro niche. This just kills me. Can you see that? Fierce Cowboy Wolf. This is the genre for this book, according to Amazon, is sexy paranormal wolf shifter romance. I think that's a micro niche. I just don't know how many books there are out there like that. Okay, another example of micro niche, which sounds kind of like Micronesia, which is cool, is, I think I've got the hang of this finally, maybe. Okay, look at this. This is a micro niche. I don't even know where to find this on the Amazon page. Someone sent this to me. Editor's Picks, Top 10 Best Mystery, Thriller, and Suspense Continuing Series for March, just for March. But look at, you see what the last one is? Argyles and Arsenic? That's my book. That's pretty cool. But it's a micro niche, for heaven's sakes. Who thinks of Editor's Pick Best Mystery, Thriller, and Suspense Continuing Series for March 2022? That's ridiculous. But it does help. Micro niches can help you impress other people. So I posted a picture of that on Facebook, and people were like, "Oh my God, that's great!" And it was, because then more people bought the book. So, as silly as it might become, there's something to be said for a micro niche. There we go. Okay. A micro niche won't help you catch the eye of an editor and agent, though. I think that, what was it? Sexy paranormal shifter romance might throw them for a loop. You never know. But because unless a slew of people, unless a whole bunch of other people know those little micro niches exist, you're reaching out to a very small audience, and you want to reach out to a big audience. Okay, so still no clue about what genre you have on your hands? There are quizzes online that want to help you. I don't necessarily recommend taking them. Some of them might actually be sketchy and might actually be clickbait, but I sacrificed myself and took one for you. Let's see if I can make that share. Okay, there's part of it anyway. These are the actual questions they ask you to find out what genre you've written. How would your friends describe you? What time of day do you like to write? What drink do you prefer? Like, what's that got to do with anything? What is your relationship status? What decade should you have been born in? And they only give you 4 options. What favorite color, US city would you like to visit? Describe your clothing style. And they only give you 4 options. What country would you buy your dream house in? They give you 4 options. This is just, okay, so you go through this and it's just, look how, it's just question after question after question. So I actually did answer all of them, including if you were an animal, what would you be? And I said wombat, because that is what I would be. I was surprised that that was actually there, because some of these others are just like, whoa, no. What letter do you like most? 4 options. After going through that whole thing, all these questions, you'll never guess what they told me I should write. I was astounded, because none of these actually seem to have anything to do much with writing. Mystery, you should write mystery books. How did they do that? It's crazy. So that's nutty, but can be fun. All right. There are quizzes online, though, that you should avoid. I'm pretty sure would just be disastrous. Like this one. Just the wording is scary. What type of book should you write? What's your perfect genre? Take this quiz to find out. Take this quiz now. No, I think that's probably a no. Don't click on that one. And you know what? You don't need a quiz like that. Because there are ways you can figure it out yourself. Okay. Ask yourself, what's the plot of your book? Is it twisty and full of suspense? Do you have a love story? A crime? Where and when does your story take place? Are there elements of magic or the supernatural? Has it got monsters or ghosts? Does it have elements of romance? Well, that was sort of covered in a love story, wasn't it? What age are the protagonists? Then ask yourself, which are the most important elements to your story? Because you might have a lot of elements. I've got knitting, I've got bookstore, I've got a tea room, I've got old age, I've got poisoning, I've got a food truck. You know, those are all elements, but really what's most important? Don't worry about the minor elements. If the main element of your book is a raging range war in Texas, but a couple of your characters also fall in love, you probably don't want to label the book a romance, because the people who are looking for books about raging range wars in Texas aren't going to find it. And people who find the book in romance are going to be a little bit upset that that cowboy doesn't have a little more romance. Think about what elements you enjoy most in your book. You've already thought about the age of the protagonists. What's the age of your target audience? Do you have a target audience in mind, and what's that age? If you're writing for children, children tend to like to read about kids slightly older than they are rather than younger. So you'll have grade school children really enjoying books like Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Middle school kids want to read about high school kids. High school kids want to read about older high school kids or college kids or adults. there's a genre that you might not be aware of. There's certainly a zillion that I'm not aware of, but there's another age category. It's not just children's, young adult. There's also new adult, and that's usually people of college age, not necessarily in college, but that first signs of independent living. It's between YA and adult. And adults like any of this stuff. Children usually like to have stories that are children-centered. They don't want to have the adults solving their problems for them. That's a different topic, I guess. But next thing to do is to try this. If you still are having some trouble understanding, figuring out what you've got, you understand what you've got, you just don't necessarily know how to put this label on it. Take your lovely, long, great big book that took you so long to write in so many words and try to sum it up in one clear sentence. See what that does. So here's my book that came out yesterday, Argyles and Arsenic. It's book 5 in a mystery series. It takes place in a bookstore in Scotland, or in a small town in Scotland that has a bookstore too. Okay, so here's my sentence. When a party guest dies of arsenic poisoning, the 4 women who own Jan Bonny Books set out to solve the crime. Well, it's a mystery. It's also got the tea room and a lot of cooking, but it's not a cookbook. It's got a museum. It's not a story about a museum necessarily. It has a museum. Sure, it's about a museum. It's got a lot of knitting. It's got a knitting competition in it. It's not a knitting book. It's got women. It's not women's fiction. It's got elements of those things, though. It's got some drinking in it. It's not a book about whiskey. It hasn't got much drinking. It's got some Gallic language in it. It's not a foreign language book. The basic sentence that took me so many months to write is it's when a party guest dies of arsenic poisoning, the 4 women who own Jan Bonny Books set out to solve the crime. So the sad thing is that you're trying to attach a label to this work of art that you've produced that has so much more heart than just this label. But that's all it is. Genre is just a label to make it easier for people to find your book. Easier for an agent to say, I like this, and I know who would like it in New York. It makes it easier for the editor to say, hey, the marketers are going to love this. They'll know exactly how it can be marketed, and the book sellers will know exactly where to put it on their shelf so that it'll sell like hotcakes. So that simple label genre won't capture the soul of your book, but you don't need to worry about that because genre is a tool for you to capture readers. And that went a whole lot faster than I thought it would. So if you have questions, or if you'd like to, if you have questions, let me know. We can chat. There aren't that many of you out there, so we could unmute and ask questions, or you can type them, whatever you want. Is anyone up?
Yes, feel free to pop your question in the chat or raise your hand and I can unmute you. So did you always know that you wanted to write mystery, or did you kind of try out other genres first?
When I got serious about it, I knew it was mystery. I guess I tried a children's story once early on that got rejected. I sent it to Highlights and it got rejected. I would like to try some children's, but it would be a children's mystery. So I think I'm stuck on mysteries. And that's certainly what I've stuck to.
Susan, I see your hand raised, so I'm going to unmute you. And then you can ask your question.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, how are you, Molly? I don't know what my genre is.
Okay.
I think it's fantasy, and I
Okay.
don't really know who my audience is.
Okay. What are some of the elements of the book?
It's like a short story.
Okay.
Basically. Yeah, it's a I call it The Adventures of Charlie and Me,
Mm-hmm.
and then you know, and this time it's called The Witch Dream.
Mm.
But see, I admit that I'm 72 years old in
That's
the book.
okay. That's good.
I think I kind of wanted to go for older people,
Mm-hmm.
and I mentioned that Charlie's my companion and service dog, so you know that I'm disabled too.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, I love Halloween, so this is like a Halloween story, but it's really
Okay.
the dream part is really gross and violent, so I don't think children would like it. Well, maybe they would, but you know.
You know what, Susan? So many adults love
So it might be
Halloween.
horror. It might be one of those sub things you said. You
Yeah.
know, fantasy horror.
And in short stories, it's not quite so important to have a genre unless you're, there are magazines out there that you can market it to. There are fantasy, science fiction magazines and horror magazines.
Really? So, but I need to know exactly.
Well, what you ought to do is find some of those magazines.
You know, we have to stop the witch dream from coming in my dream because I'm going to have a heart attack if we don't stop that. That's a problem. Okay. Yeah. And then we decide we have to find a plan. So we sort of got a plan. We had to find 10 items to protect ourselves from witches because they're going to stop us from banishing them from my dream.
Cool.
And so on and so forth. But then we find the answer because we find well, see, this is the part that's kind of fantasy. We find we find that the frog witch morphs into Spider Woman, and Spider Woman created the dream catcher. So then I just kind of go into a dream catcher educational thing, you know. but I do it in a, you know, I do it in character, like I do it as Spider Woman's telling us about it, stuff like that. So that's the fantasy part. See, I don't even know where I'm at.
Is the story finished?
Well, yeah. Well, I don't know. I've been revising it for a month. Lord
well, that's
knows.
good. You know what? Short stories take longer to write. A good short story takes a very long time to write.
Well, you know, I reduced it down, way down. And then I started, you know, getting on pro writing and Grammarly and all those suggestions and so on and so forth. And so then I got back up to, you know, now I'm back up to the 2,500 words.
That's good.
That's good?
Yeah, short stories can be any
okay.
Many different lengths.
Okay.
Depends on the market.
Anyway, so
it sounds like
it kind of could be an adventure too. I mean, we're trying to find this answer, my dog and I, and then we have these fantasy characters, and then we have you know, the witches are after us, and this horrible dream and stuff like that.
Well, it sounds like fantasy adventure.
Oh, fantasy adventure.
Yeah. I don't know whether it's. I don't know which comes first, adventure fantasy or fantasy adventure. Probably either way. But yeah, there are combinations like that, definitely.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
And then I wrote a short story about the the pandemic.
Oh gosh.
And this was Halloween, and they were all pumpkins. And I called it Pumpkin Town. And so, you know, Pumpkin Town was having their festival until the virus came to town.
Oh yeah.
Nobody liked the virus, you know, and then people started getting sick, and the politician had to have a meeting and everything. Then we got the sick kid and the dying kid and all this stuff, and then they find the answer about, oh, good idea. We heard that if you feed them candy, that, you know, that's the answer. So everybody gets a whole bunch of candy from all the towns everywhere, and the virus loves the candy, and he eats all of it, and then he dies of sugar overdose.
Good. Excellent.
Thank you, Susan. I do want to have time for other people to ask questions.
Okay, so go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. In the chat, there's a new question. They're saying, I'm sorry if I missed this, but what genres does Molly enjoy reading?
I like mysteries a whole lot. I also like, I read some women's fiction. I also read, because I was in the children's department at the library for so many years. I love children's books. The new children's books are so smart and fun. So I like those. I also read nonfiction. A variety, although it's predominantly mystery these days. When my boys were younger and at home, I read the books that they recommended, which were mostly science fiction fantasy. Read a lot of that. Star Wars, a lot of Star Wars. Dungeons and Dragons. And they're fun. What do you like to read, Pam?
Oh, she might be typing in the chat.
Okay. This was an interesting question, because some people know exactly what they're like to write and what they are writing, and others just don't know. And I can understand each side of it.
For me, it definitely varies. Like, I enjoy reading mysteries, but then sometimes I'm like, you know, what if I tried another type of story? I kind of like to keep myself open to different possibilities. But
have you read Hamnet?
I have not, but someone recommended it to me.
Oh my gosh, so good. Just excellent.
Oh, she said mainly historical fiction and mysteries, but she's slowly getting into sci-fi.
Ah. Yeah. Yeah, historical fiction is great. And historical mysteries.
While we wait for more questions to come through, we still have plenty of time if people want to pop them in the chat. I want to make sure I give a reminder for the next couple of events. So we have a virtual visit with Madeline Miller on Thursday, March 3rd, which is actually tomorrow night. So be sure to sign up to get the Zoom link. Just go to champaign.org/events. As far as the next writers workshop, we have on the 16th a writers lounge. This is an opportunity to network and connect with fellow writers. So be sure to register for that. That's the 16th, 7 p.m. And then after that, the next workshop will be on March 30th at 7 p.m. And that's publishing fiction in literary magazines with John Milas. So for all of those events, just go to champaign.org/events.
That's a good bunch of stuff going on.
Yeah. They just put in the chat, I enjoyed tonight. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I thought I had way too much stuff, and turns out I didn't have quite enough, but
that was a perfect amount. Well, I don't see any hands raised or questions in the chat, so I will come back on. So thank you so much, Molly. As always, really helpful advice and great information.
I hope so.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for coming. We will see everyone at the next workshop.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.